Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing the play Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead by Tom Stoppard. And I've been back to this play, I think at least once, since I first read it in AP English many moons ago as a complement to reading Hamlet. And I still recommend it that way. I don't think this is a play that can be read apart from Hamlet. So if you haven't read Hamlet, this isn't going to be as enjoyable for you. And I would suggest you would need to read Hamlet before you read this. I would say at least 50% of what's going on in the play is going to be lost on you. Now, what's interesting is Stoppard does something fabulous in this play. So, to give some context, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are characters that are minor enough that the Laurence Olivier film adaptation completely removed them. So there is no Rosencrantz and Guildenstern in that version that Olivier put together. Because I think possibly too, he was just trying to cut out as many side plots as possible and get the play Hamlet, if you do it full length, which has only ever been done by Kenneth Branagh, it's going to run about 4 hours. But Olivier was able to do it in a little over 2, and part of that was cutting out these two characters. Now, what's interesting, even though they're side characters, and even though Sir Laurence Olivier, is able to cut them out of an adaptation that's still coherent, they themselves are a really fascinating foil for Hamlet, not just, you could say, over the whole play, but at different parts of the play. And I would say my appreciation for this text has grown, not only as I've gotten to know Hamlet better and read it more and more over the years, but as I've grown as a person, as I've seen more plays enacted, as I've understood more about how Shakespeare used the plays to comment on the conditions, the working conditions of players and playwrights at the time, and how society saw plays. And part of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern is an extended version of that commentary. What else can I say about plays? What else can I say about how these peripheral actors are excluded and ultimately, spoiler alert if you haven't read Hamlet, they're killed. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead, and you can see, of course, these boots here on this cover. But there are so many moments in the play that are just laugh out loud funny, not just because of the way that Stoppard is writing, but because, as I say, of the context of the play. So you'll have parts in which verbatim you're getting the stage directions from and the words from Hamlet, because that's what's going on. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, this is their whole play. Hamlet is instead the side character in this play, as opposed to in Hamlet, they're the side characters in Hamlet's story. And the short phrases that you'll hear in the play, there's so much, they're so pregnant, there's so much more behind them. So here a player is speaking to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. For some of us it is performance, for others patronage. They are two sides of the same coin, or let us say, being as there are so many of us, the same side of two coins. Don't clap too loudly, it's a very old world. Here's another. We keep to our usual stuff, more or less, only inside out. We do on stage the things that are supposed to happen off, which is a kind of integrity if you look on every exit being an entrance somewhere else. So there's a lot there, not only the idea of Twelfth Night and all men are players on a stage, but what is actually happening on stage? Is it an imitation of life, or is it a chance for us to do the things that we are thinking? Or is it a chance to, as they say here, stage the things that are supposed to happen off stage? The things that are real life are then put on the stage. Obviously, the answer is yes to all of those things, but here it's pondered within a few lines and arranged in such a way to make you feel thoughtful, not just about the scene, which I've taken these words out of context, but for for acting, playwriting in general. Here's another. There's a scene in Hamlet in which the players are introduced, and these same players appear here to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. And in Hamlet, they say, well, we can do these different genres. We can do comedy, historical, pastoral, comical, historical. This idea of mixing the genres, which was not something done in the past, prior to Shakespeare's time. Shakespeare, however, very much entered that paradigm of mixing things. Tragic comedy, well, what is that? Well, you'll see that in Shakespeare's plays. Now, the player here makes a really interesting point. They're hardly divisible, sir. Well, I can do you blood and love without the rhetoric, and I can do you blood and rhetoric without the love, and I can do you all three concurrent or consecutive, but I can't do you love and rhetoric without the blood. Blood is compulsory. They're all blood, you see. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh at my own quotes here, but I really do still find them funny. Here, what seems to be a quite light comment is really quite heavy, that blood is compulsory. They're all blood. Everything has to do, even when we're talking about something comical, even if we're talking about something historical, there's still always blood at the root of it, that there is a consequence, there is a gravity to anything that's being enacted on the stage, even if the theme isn't putatively serious. I know I keep looking at quotes here, but it's all of 100 pages, but there's so many great lines in here that will stay with you for a while, as I say, especially if you've read the play. All your life you live so close to truth, it becomes a permanent blur in the corner of your eye, and when something nudges it into outline, it is like being ambushed by a grotesque. What are the truths that we tell ourselves? What are the stories that we tell ourselves? And how often are those stories true? I often share that my sisters and I, once we were talking about an incident that happened in our family in our childhood, and I insisted that I was wearing a certain color shirt, and all three of my sisters insisted that it was a different color. And I realized that my memory was incorrect. This memory that I had remembered my whole life was incorrect, because it was impossible that I had remembered correctly, while my three sisters with independent memories all insisted that it was a different color. So sometimes the memories that we have, they're not even correct. The so-called truths that we tell ourselves are not correct. And part of what that character is asking in that particular moment is about the veracity of those truths. How true are they? How do we know that that the truth that we remember, that we think, is actually true? It's a tough question. We must be born with an intuition of mortality before we know the words for it, before we know that there are words. Out we come, bloodied and squalling with the knowledge that for all the compasses in the world, there's only one direction, and time is its only measure. I mean, wow. And remember that I think primarily this is a very funny, biting, satirical play, and yet there are these wonderful moments of insight where you stop reading and you want to keep going with the thought that's proposed to you. My last one will be a long read, because it ties into action from Hamlet, but you're taking text from the original Shakespeare play and rewording it in a way that just sounds really funny once it's all put together. And Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are pondering, well, what's really bothering Hamlet? And Guildenstern says, it really boils down to symptoms. Pregnant replies, mystic illusions, mistaken identities, arguing his father is his mother, that sort of thing, intimations of suicide, foregoing of exercise, loss of mirth, hints of claustrophobia, not to say delusions of imprisonment, invocations of camels, chameleons, capons, whales, weasels, hawks, handsaws, riddles, quibbles and evasions, amnesia, paranoia, myopia, daydreaming, hallucinations, stabbing his elders, abusing his parents, insulting his lover, and appearing hatless in public, knock-kneed, droop-stockinged, and sighing like a lovesick schoolboy, which at his age is coming on a bit strong. All right, Tom Stoppard, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Strongly recommended, but not without reading the play Hamlet. So make sure you read that play, then have a really good laugh with this. You'll need to come back to it several times to really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this review, I've got plenty more reviews on this channel. You can go back through different playlists and see which books really will catch your interest. If you'd like to support what we're doing, please hit the like button. Please consider subscribing, and please consider supporting our Patreon, which helps me record these videos. And until next time, enjoy your reading.